Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Shovel Knight, King of Cards. In the last part, we defeated our third Joustus judge, King Birder, and found out, what a shock, the Enchantress is behind everything in a Shovel Knight campaign? You don't say. Now we're in the Tower of Fate, and this is largely where they kind of put the darkness mechanic from the old Spectre Knight stage, which it was present here in the other campaigns. Only there it was on a raining green background that killed the bitrate, which, well, this looks better than that, at least from what I can tell on my editing software, but who knows how YouTube compression will treat this, considering that is kind of the same background as Bubble Man stage now, isn't it? The main thing with the Tower of Fate stages, like with the other campaigns, is while they have the occasional thing that's unique to themselves, they are largely a combination of a lot of mechanics you've seen up to that point in the campaign to be the final test. For instance, here we got the springs from the King Pridemore stages, we got the darkness from Spectre Knight stage, we even got the soul fire from Spectre Knight stage. But we still have to worry about alternate exits like this one over here. This is actually the best alternate exit in the game if you're trying to get all the Joustus cards, because getting from the start of the level down to this exit is very fast, and you can get upwards of 5,000 gold per visit. But notably over here we also got a little hidden room that has a very familiar looking helmet in a little study, as well as the Enchantress's card. 3 count arrows and cascade. This is arguably one of the best cards in the game. The only reason I say arguably is because since it is count cards, it does have the weakness of losing strength over time, but at the same time, where you place it is going to be nigh untouchable barring above her, so that is, I'd say, pretty good in any endgame deck. The alternate exit is very focused on more darkness, but now there's not only liquid samurais popping around on the floor, there's also going to be some of the larger gold armor knights who are kind of sumo wrestler adjacent. They kind of just inch forward and try to slam down on you. We saw them back in the final level of Birder Bluffs last time as well, now I think about it, as well as a couple other times prior to that, I think. But they do get a little devious with the merit medal here in that you can see it only when it's actively in front of one of the stained glass windows, so you kind of need to either do a battery brigandine charge up into it or the fire saber up into it, which, not hard to place, but actively kind of hard to see if you're not paying attention to what's in the sky. If you're just looking at the enemies, it's going to be pretty easy to miss. Getting that alternate exit gives us access to the final Joustus Hall in the game, and on my way back in, I suffered perhaps the most embarrassing death in the LP for how directly in my face that was. Well, at least the checkpoint was right there. Worth noting, the 5,000 gold I mentioned you can get by doing the alternate exit over and over again that I eventually do to get all the Joustus cards does require breaking that checkpoint, which, hey, if it's quick and easy, you might as well. The other thing this level focuses on is moving platforms like this, but in specific, we got several platforms that have spikes on them that just kind of move back and forth. You need to kind of worm your way in between while watching out for the dark fairies here, which we saw them at the start of the level. The moment you tackle one, they start blinking red. When they stop blinking red, they explode, and it's a decently sized explosion, so you do want to keep your distance away from them. With that said, they move slowly enough that it's easy to just avoid interacting with them in general, so unless there's one directly in your path, you might as well just avoid them. On the other hand, should you actively shoulder charge into one, you can then actively use it as a platform before it explodes by just twirl jumping into it over and over again, and that can be an effective strategy to get to higher platforms more quickly, like at the start of this actual stage, when you're going for the alternate exit over and over again to grind for money. Like many things prior across the campaigns, the final screen of this level combines both major mechanics. We got the springs and darkness alongside the moving platforms, but honestly, this feels a lot easier than the rest of the stage to me, if only because the constant presence of the waterfall in the background means there's very little room for mistaking what's actively around you. It's not like they can hide things more easily across the area. The only thing they really try to hide is where the merit medal is, but even then, you're more than likely going to see it as you walk across anyway, because it's right to my left right now. The most stressful part of this portion of the stage is the very end of it, if only because the only platforms you have to work with are the top of these spike platforms and springs. And usually the timing on the movement of the platforms is such that they'll give you enough time to do 2 bounces before you have to move onwards. But it can definitely feel a little bit tight when you have to deal with the Dark Fairy here. But even then, I say it's dangerous, and it is, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's hard to deal with. As long as you've gotten this far in, you're good enough at timing your shoulder dashes, but that's not going to be that big an issue. So now we can move on to the second stage of the Tower of Fate. But we have our final Joustus Hall in front of us, so we're going to eschew story progress to do the Tower of Joustus. Worth noting, I'm not sure if it actively is made accessible by accessing the Tower of Joustus itself or just by accessing the Tower of Fate areas, because I seldom visit the Glidewing in this section. But Chester now has access to the final purchasable item from him, the level 4 mystery pack. There's only 10 cards in that, but they are some of the best cards in the game. A lot of count arrows especially. So if you're doing the duels in here and feeling like you're a little underpowered, go grab some of these. They'll likely power up your deck enough to the point where you'll be able to more easily deal with the duels we have in front of us in this final Joustus Hall. On top of that, you're going to want them for the final boss of card games, effectively, as well. So what's interesting about the Tower of Joustus is, because it is effectively in the Tower of Fate, most of the duels in here are a little bit of a puzzle to reach, with the exception of the first one. Because there's actually lava here that can kill you, and I think you do lose money upon dying in here. I say I think because if I've done it, it was only once. As I informed Spectre Knight, the card printing is going at full speed. We simply cannot keep up with demand. I do find it genuinely kind of funny that they sort of imply this is meant to be the same area Spectre Knight's hub world is in his own campaign. Here's our first duelist right here. Look at this wisp chest that Spectre missed. He wasn't being very meticulous, was he? If you beat me at Joustus, I'll let you see the wisp up close. Ooh, who knows what'll happen? I hope no one gets hurt. So while you're going to see some count cards across the Tower of Joustus, you're going to see a lot of every variety of card by and large, with the exception of maybe grave cards. Partnered to that with the fact you have some pretty unique setups going around, like this specific one that's kind of just 4 smaller quadrants, and your moves can get kind of limited pretty quickly. If there's any duels you're probably going to use a majority of your deck in, it's going to be these ones. So make sure your entire deck is prepared. Heck, on that note, if you have a card you really like, maybe even prepare multiple of them just in case, so you can really take advantage of their abilities. Alright, a deal's a deal. I'll open up the wisp chest, have a closer look. Hello there. Get it out of me! What in blue blazes was that thing? Weird, Spectre said it sustained him. Wonder what it did to you. Sent me on a cosmic trip, no doubt. Now, if you actually want to duel red, you have to fall down on the very left side of this room, but I forget to do that for a little bit, so I actively go after, I think, the next duel first. This wobbling effect does wear off after a little bit, by the way. It's not permanent, thankfully. Formless and infinite are we, her legion of guards, liquid samurai. Intruder, by our queen's order, we settle our scores in Joustus here. Without a table nearby, our battle cannot commence. So there is a table nearby, but it's up here. You actively need to kind of guide the Liquid Samurai up to here, which can be a little awkward if you don't realize how it's going to work, but it's not exactly hard to do. You just have to let the Liquid Samurai get above the platform above us to the left before moving to the right over by the table. But first we want to come over here and get the Hidden Merit Medal, which replaces the one from the Puzzle Joustus. There is none here. And grab not only the card for Shovel Knight himself, but also on the other chest, of course, his ever-faithful partner, Shield Knight. Really good cards all around there, honestly. Still your tongue! We guard the tower's entrance with full attention! Sure, guys. Sure. With that out of the way, let's now go actively duel the Liquid Samurai. Like I said, you want to bait the Liquid Samurai while it's on the ceiling over to the left, then go over to the right by the table, and then when it gets over you at that point, you'll actively be able to duel the thing. Formless and infinite are we, her legion of guards, the Liquid Samurai. Today we taste victory from Joustus for our queen! This is probably overall the easiest fight in here because it's the most straightforward set of cards, even if you have to deal with a couple of counts along the way. Bringing in some Cascade cards to take advantage of the count cards' weaknesses can come in real handy here, but as you can see, the moment the count cards lose their turn count, they very much are no longer a threat. Notably, the champion is over here. I think I actively do accidentally spawn him in so we can see who it is, but I go back here to go duel red really quickly, as that's more important. My beloved, my betrothed, my heart breaks for her red skull lies misplaced. Look, people misplace things all the time. It's not my fault. Can we play Joustus or what? My heart grows cold, but shall we play cards to pass the time? Sure. To see her once more, if only. Joustus it is then. Red's duel is weird because he is actively grave-themed largely with a lot of his cards. The only other person outside of Spectre Knight and Phantom Striker that actually has any of them. but he doesn't have an arena that would really take advantage of it, unlike Spectre Knight, which makes him feel like he's really underutilizing it. But I think that's probably the point, because they probably want you to actively get the cards from him and Phantom Striker, then go deal with Spectre Knight easily to win that fight more easily than we did. But that's why they also give you the cheat cards, so you can completely win Joustus without using the cheat cards, but the game is so heavily skewed with the order you get cards in that it feels like you're kind of meant to at the same time. Since you don't get punished for it in any regard, it doesn't really hurt that idea either. With those 3 duelists out of the way, we can now proceed to the right and go actively see our champion that we have to deal with. In this case, it's good old Horus. You've defeated your rivals, I see. No small feat. You've persisted longer than most up here. Now we may finally have a proper match. Are you prepared? It's time for you to accept your fate. Horus isn't hard inherently with his deck. What makes him rough is his boss power. See that bar at the top? If it reaches the coin on your side of the screen, your turn is automatically ended. So you need to actively make your decisions about where you're going to place your cards very quickly. And that extra stress can make you make some really dumb mistakes. So watch out for that at the end of the day. Despite all my posturing, I've suffered defeat. How embarrassing. Dang. Perhaps I'll journey along with you for a time. Some sunlight might do these old dry grieves some good. That's all 4 Joustus Halls 100% completed. We're still missing a good chunk of cards that you can easily get either via the Duelist Within or from the mystery cards, but we'll deal with those later, because there's a way to make that a little bit easier on us. But also, now we have our next set of merit medals collected. That's 120 in total at this point. Ahem. And the towers all fell like the rains in the spring, and when word reached the village, they cried for their king. But the king was alive and in a terrible way, and the dust turned to dust, and the green turned to gray. Ominous! I'm noticing those are getting moodier. You're really, buddy, are you okay? Really quick, though, let's go talk to Gouache. Now that I look at it, I think you should make some changes. You overworked some of the details. But you requested these details. I made it to your exact specification. There's definitely something wrong with this part of the painting. My arm looks weird. Make it symmetrical. But, no, it's not even a problem, and it's so much work. My time. Fine, I'll change it. I need 1,000 more gold. Just tell me what you want. You can actively change it to either the sketch or slightly in work of progress phase at any time you want for just a cheap fee. And if you come back after, I think usually like 2 Glidewing revisits, it does show up as an other state. You can do this up to 3 times, and you do get a different scene at the 3rd time, so I'm showing it off. Worth noting, though, especially the first chunk of the footage for this, actively looks a little different than the rest. It was very blurry in comparison. That's because this was me messing around with more OBS settings this late into the game, trying to figure out better recording settings for this new PC. I'm pretty close to having it pretty much nailed into where I want it to be compared to the old PC, so any future LPs should be pretty consistent looking. I'm still getting to the point I'm figuring out new editing stuff in the case I want to mess with that at all, though. Upon changing it a 3rd time, Gouache gets a little pissed off, to say the least. I do like that, though. It's very funny. The mustache really adds a lot here, honestly. At this point, though, for one thing, you can see Horus with Mona and the Spin Wolves up in the little champion sector up there, but we have all 4 trophies. You might think, okay, we're all done with Joustus then, barring getting all the cards, right? No. Think back. There's a specific NPC here in the Glidewing I have yet to duel because I was saving her for last. It's time we actively go duel Cardia. Now, admittedly, the first duel with her is meant to be done much earlier in the game because it is very much early game, near King Pridemore level deck building. Joustus shines light on the heart. Shall we glimmer together? Largely, you're going to be dealing with a lot of the starting cards that you'll see as early as the Hall of Joustus all the way back in, what was that, part 2 overall? But that's because you're meant to do this at the start and then get the quest to beat all 4 Halls of Joustus from her directly. I've done things a little bit out of order in that regard, I will openly admit. But upon beating her and beating all 4 Joustus judges, you get to unlock something a little bit more special. What a thrill, I can see why the others have put their hope in you, and now you have my hope as well. Return to me when the houses of Joustus lay ousted, and don't think there's no reward, in fact it's beyond your dreams. Alright, but with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 16, we're going to continue on in the Tower of Fate after seeing whatever Cardia has for us. See you guys then.